Hello, everyone. Welcome to I'm going to call it. I mean, we've got great people on our show all the time, but this is a special edition. This is part of the reason why we decided to go this new format so we can do some really cool stuff. And of course, bring you some really cool places. Tonight, we've got Sydney Croasmun on, and we're talking the old Ridge route, which is over a century old. Was replaced, I guess, twice when you say Highway 99 and then by the 5. But this is a historic road that is super special. It's closed in the section we're going to cover. We're going to cover the southern half, which is the about 26 miles, and the majority of it is closed to traffic and had a number of establishments along the way because in the 1910s, it was kind of hard to move a car around, and so they had to have plenty of facilities to let people in. If you're here, please say hello in the comments. We will not be talking too much about the cycling aspect, but if you want, check the link below. We have a link to an article that tells you about a 66-mile loop that you can bike. There's no water until you reach Lake Hughes. And the last piece of cycling info that I'll start off on is that you probably don't need to ride a big mountain bike. It's generally in great shape, but still, I ride 32s. And so that's all the information you need to know. So anyways, let me bring in our guests for tonight. Hello, Sydney.
Hey, nice to meet you guys.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing fantastic. I mean,
awesome.
Vic hasn't had a chance to speak about this, but we've ridden this road many times. I didn't know about it probably until about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And we'll give people a little bit of history of the Old Ridge route.
Yeah, so it's a 1915 road. It was part of the California First Highway Bond Act, so it's one of the original highways in California. It's well over 100 years old, and it's pretty neat in the stance of it's very much original. You don't have a lot of places left in California where you have such a good stretch of original road from that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I mean, like, if you could even tell the difference when you're on there. It's gone through a few iterations, and it's a really unique living history that is very shocking. It's like there's nothing similar to it in Los Angeles, right, Vic?
No, not at all.
I mean, what you have any thoughts before we get into the video, Vic?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts, but I'll wait to the video because it's going to be easier to ask when the video is playing.
Oh, very skilled.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just cut right to it. Let's bring in our fun little 3D virtual walkthrough, if I can find it. Oh, and I went too far ahead. We'll have to go all the way back to the start because we kind of went over all the notes here. But awesome. Once again, we use Google Earth. And so basically, just for people who don't know, this just sort of for reference, from Los Angeles, it is probably about a 40-mile ride between, or 40-mile drive between, Los Angeles and to the southern end, which is Castaic, and it's kind of like smack dab between here and Bakersfield. And then just to kind of zoom in to give people a bigger look at, we're covering the 26-mile section, but it actually, the original road continues way past that, right?
Yes, it drops down the Grapevine where the modern day 5 is right now.
I noticed when you're going down the Grapevine that sometimes you're able to see some of the old road along the way there.
Oh yeah, so right between the north and southbound lanes, while it's dropping down, there's a little swoop of the road, and then it continues right down the center.
know there's something called Dead Man's Curve, right?
Yeah, I was just going to
Yes.
mention that. I was
Oh,
going to ask
yes.
about that. I saw another video where the guy searches for cars that have been, off the road, and like really old cars, obviously, they just are going to be there forever. And that was just fascinating. And I always
Oh,
try
yeah.
and find that little exit. It's not an exit, I guess, but it's like a little offshoot off the freeway to get to it, but I can't find it.
Yeah, it comes up quick. It's a little hard to get to it, but there's a spot where you can overlook over it if you get off where Fort Tejon is. You
Uh-huh.
can take a little dirt road up there and you can look down on it. But that was a really dangerous section of the road because a lot of the times the bigger trucks would lose their brakes going around that curve and they would fly over the edge, or people would go a little too fast at it. So there are still some little bits of wreckage down there below the
wow.
road.
And before I go on, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the Ridge Route Preservation
Yeah.
group you're involved in, and tell us a little bit more about them, because I know you guys just had like an event last weekend.
Mm-hmm. So I'm part of the Ridge Route Preservation Organization. So that's a group that's working to keep the road maintained, raise awareness for the road, and raise funding to further clean it up and further get it fixed up. And some of the notable stuff that the group has done is in 2005, there was a landslide that took out a big chunk of the road, and they arranged to get it repaired. And at one point, the arch from the tumble-in fell down. It collapsed. Yeah. So the reason why we still have the arch up there is because they went and rebuilt it. And our next project right now is there's a couple potholes on the road that are impacting the actual concrete. So our next project is getting those filled. And right now I'm waiting on approval from the Forest Service for the all good to move ahead with it, but we're rolling at it. We're going for it.
That's a really interesting thing to get into, like the preservation of an old road. Like, how did you get into that?
I found the road by accident, and I kept going down the rabbit hole, and I found this group, and I've always wanted to work with them, and I think the road's fantastic, and it's been around this long. I mean, if we can keep it for another 100 years, and it'll be an ancient relic at some point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll go back to the tour, and maybe people notice I had some technical difficulties, but it's seamless here. All right. So this is, I guess, the southern start of the Ridge Route, and it's something that I didn't know about too much before, because I know, like, one thing when you look at older roads versus newer roads, you could kind of tell a little about their age because the materials, the grade, and the width. And right here, we're starting at is this Lake Hughes Road that crosses
Yes.
Ridge Route? Okay, good. Typically for us, we start here over at the Starbucks, but for all intents and purposes, people start here, or this is the official start of the Ridge Route.
Yeah, that's a good starting point to go to.
Okay, and I know it takes us up into these homes, but kind of like moving ahead. I didn't know this, Vic, but the Ridge Route actually kind of goes behind the homes.
Oh,
yeah.
That's private property there now, right? I mean,
well,
we can't ride that, or can we?
If we do, it's a dead end, right?
Yeah. So it used to follow the road that goes off to the right of where the road is now, and there's that little brickyard there. And it used to cross through the brickyard and loop up through the playground of the school. And it lines back up around the curve past the school. You're back on the original alignment.
So how did this section here, obviously, like, it runs into a dead end here. And I believe this is an image of probably like where the school is now, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow. What happened to the grading here? That it dead ends, but it's the road. The newer road is so much more elevated.
Yeah. So when they built up the neighborhood there, they filled in a lot of the hillsides, and you'll notice in the picture of where the school was, there's a loop in there. So there used to be a couple more loops in there that would help it gain elevation without being too steep.
Wow. Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, I know when you're riding this part of the road here, you can tell right off the top of the bat that it's not the century old road, but I knew it had to be somewhere.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh,
I
go
have a
ahead.
quick question about the original construction because I always kid that it was built with donkeys and dynamite. Like, how far off
Roughly.
am I?
So no dynamite was used, but it was built. So men with picks and shovels would carve out most of the hillside, get most of the big stuff out of the way. And then they brought on mules pulling these devices called Fresno scrapers that would help grade it and flatten it out. So it
Oh,
was all
wow.
very much done manual labor. There was only one spot on the road that did use a steam shovel. No dynamite though.
So men dug that whole thing out. That's insane.
It's pretty crazy. And the craziest part about it is it's 1 year that they had to clear that out. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
I don't know
railroad
how.
contractors because at the
Wait.
time there weren't freeway builders. So railroad contractors came through, swept
Oh,
clean through
railroad.
it.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Wow.
we can't even get Ventura Boulevard repaved.
Right? Right?
I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because, like, this whole part, and up until here, where now if you're on a bike, you'll definitely know you kind of come down around this well, and you've got a really steep climb that goes right next to the 5, and you can tell that grade. Even this road looks weathered, is not definitely something that they would have built years ago. But you said right up
Yeah.
around here is where the road intersects and kind of where the ridge route actually begins.
Yeah. So that's where it catches back up with the old alignment.
oh,
The
that makes
actual
sense.
alignment was across the freeway and the hills. It's called the Callahan line change.
Wow. And
Yeah.
just when you take a look at the 5 and you think of how much work got put into the 5 getting in, how they were able to
So,
just build this first part is incredible.
oh wait, so did it go downhill when it went to the 5 and back up again?
It stayed
'Cause-
about level because they did have to dig that out to put the 5 in there. There was a little bit of a grade, but it jumps across from where that water tank is, jumps across at the water tank, sitting on the other side of those southbound lanes. Yeah, so you can kind of see right in the center of your map here, there's a little blip of road right on the other side of the southbound lane. So if you follow that straight and out, then you'll be able to see it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Now, from here, we're going over to, I guess, was it a town, or what was Martin's back in the day?
Martin's was actually, it's actually the last standing structure original to the road. So there was a family, the DeCitas, who homesteaded it in the late 1800s. So the house that's currently there used to be the garage where they'd service cars and passing through the area. There used to be also a vineyard out there, and they had goats and cattle. So it was actually owned by the original family that homesteaded it up until 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine what their property taxes were.
No clue.
Well, now right here, I know this is a little further up, but I know, like, in this section, you start to see some of the older road, and this is a picture you took that kind of shows some of the layering that's on there.
Yeah. So you can see they did a couple rounds with the road. It was originally oiled dirt road when it opened in 1915. There were a couple spots that had paving. The mass of the paving in Portland cement was done in 1918. And then throughout the 1920s, as they were trying to widen and straighten the road, they added the asphalt and macadam. And then there's also, there's been new layers, modern day layers above that.
Wow.
I notice sometimes it looks like reddish in some of the curves. Which layer is that?
The reddish, it would be the concrete, the Portland cement.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. And it's pretty neat.
And I know for like at this point, like, this for people that are driving or biking up here the first time, that this here is the original road, just with
Yeah.
the newer road, and you can just kind of even see just the serpentine, the original course, and then nope, we've just got some modern tractors. We'll put a 2-lane road in. It's pretty easy now.
Oh yeah, and just recently, within the last year, they paved over a lot of the original concrete, so it'll be pavement right now. But there's a couple spots where you can see it a little further up, closer to Templin Highway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll fly over to Templin Highway, and I didn't even notice this until recently, but it makes a lot of sense that you can see part of the road kind
Oh,
of would have
yeah.
bridged the area.
Yeah.
Because it was an unnatural dip. I always felt like something was weird about this alignment, but now it kind of makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
and that's a
yeah.
really nice stretch of original concrete up there.
Wow.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and obviously, if anyone's been on Templin Highway, it's a super modern road that cuts down, very graded, and you can kind of go fast, and you just better hope your brakes are working no matter what vehicle you're in.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, the original piece of road, there was a bridge over where Templin Highway is, or just went across?
So
Templin Highway wiped it out.
Yeah, Templin Highway wiped it out. At that point in time,
Okay.
there wasn't that amount of cuts in the road. That's part of why the ridge route is on top of the hills, because they were avoiding doing deep cuts.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. So from here, we're moving over to the locked gate. So this is where we actually hit the closed road. And someone had a question earlier about if you were to park just nearby and wanted just to hit the closed gate experience, where would you park in this area, or either on either end?
So I have parked just to the side of the gate. It is a little risky because there is a homeowner not far from there who doesn't want people on that section of road. It's still a public road. You can still use it, but he just doesn't like people around there. Templin Highway might be a little easier to park on the side of the road there. I would not leave valuables in the car over there, but yeah, it would probably be best to park at that intersection down at Templin Highway.
And when you had your tour this past weekend, how do you guys have access to the road?
So the tour the past weekend was from the Ridge Route Museum, and
Okay.
they just go from Gorman to the Tumblin. So they stay on the open section on the north end.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do I have to do to get myself my own personal key?
I've been trying for a little bit too. We're working on setting up a tour for cyclists, hopefully this spring.
That would be awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, this is going to get people's appetite going, but obviously you are not going to want to go through here and just really motor through. You're going to want to stop, and obviously someone who is able to guide. Now I'll bring this up right here, and this is kind of like from your drone footage of the little section over here that just got was that was very recent that it just kind of caved in?
Yeah, that was from the rainstorms over this last winter. It's an area that had kind of we've been keeping an eye on, and the hillside just caved in underneath it. This is part of why the road isn't open to cars at the moment. But if you're riding through there, just be aware of where you're at on the road. If there's any mysterious looking cracks, I would avoid that at all costs.
Vic, remember a few years ago when we were I think it might have been our first time we were riding, and there was all those black mats around.
Rubber mats, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never
I thought that was
seen that
super
before.
strange.
So, yeah, Cindy, can you explain why those I don't know. It's almost like a plot line from the movie Magnolia, but
right. It's a little odd to see those out there. And what that was the road is protected under the National Register of Historic Places. So the road, not just the area, but the actual road surface itself and they were doing work on the pipelines and the power lines up there. They needed heavy equipment, so they had to lay down that rubber matting so the heavy equipment didn't impact the road surface.
I noticed that since that first time we went, the next time we went, we saw very few of those, and some of that road was repaved. Just little chunks of it, which changed it dramatically to me because I kept waiting for the really, really rough part, and they kind of fixed that.
Yeah, a lot of the rougher stuff they repaved around 2018.
Okay.
Just because it is an access road for Edison, and it is an access road for the fire department as well. So they need to keep it accessible for them.
So the thing that I was going to mention from the start was the first time we did it, we being Zach and I, they had at each marker place, there was a sign with a photo and information, everything. And those are all still there, but they're completely ghost. You can't see anything anymore. And I keep hoping somebody fixes that, because those were really helpful and interesting. And now they're like gone. So what's the progress on that?
I have been working on that. We're trying to raise funding for it right now. The most urgent thing we're trying to do is get those potholes filled before we're supposed to have a pretty good El Nino this year. But that is in second to getting those potholes filled right now. And I've been working with a printer who says he can do UV printing, so it won't bleach as easy.
Yeah, it just washed away. It's completely white.
Yeah, and I believe those ones were from 1997. It was a Boy Scout project.
Oh, they're older than I thought.
Yeah, so they lasted a good run, but I'm either looking into the UV printing or maybe getting it in bronze, just depending on what we have for funding.
Yeah, well, the photographs were great too, so try and incorporate that.
Definitely. That's kind of what makes it special. You can see what was there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll go back to the tour here. And just kind of a little bit past this area, because I guess the cave-in that we just saw is just over here. But once you kind of make this turn and you're going due north on the closed section, you hit this incredibly clean concrete. It's flat, it's fast, and how did that get there? That's not original, is it? Or
that is not original. So there was a massive landslide that happened in 2005. That was a really crazy El Nino year, and it wiped out a good chunk of the road. And that was actually the Ridge Route Preservation Organization that stepped in and contacted, I can't remember the name of the group, but it was a highway group from out of state that brought in engineers and that kind of re-engineered that hillside and repaved it, paved to more or less, as best as we can do today, the original specs of the road. So that's why it's that concrete and it looks nice. And I see somebody on here is asking about how we're raising money, and that is through the Ridge Route Preservation Organization. The website is ridgeroute.org. So that's where you would donate to for any of this work that's being done.
Yeah, I think I have a link on that in the description. So go ahead and check that. But yeah, awesome work. And I just lost one of my things. Well, we need a producer, so that'll make things a little bit easier next time. But at least
you're doing great.
Thank you. All right, good. We're back on the map.
Wonderful.
So then, this is like the first place along the way that you're like, I think something was here, but it's kind of not clear because obviously it's like an open space. But you're telling me that this used to be a gas station over here? Or?
Yeah, that was the View Service Station. It was a little gas station up there.
And in springtime, it's just gorgeous here, especially hit the blooms and everything. But another thing I noticed here is kind of like this double alignment of the road. Was one side the original, or is this?
So the one to the left was the original. And there was a lot of paving done between 1923 and 1930. where they were widening the road, and especially curves that were a little busier, like people pulling off the road to stop at the gas station. They would widen that out so there wasn't a halt in traffic. So that's one of those spots.
Yeah.
Traffic? Did they really have traffic on that road?
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine.
It was the main road. And people would get stuck
Wow.
behind a truck and it would be miles backed up.
Oh no. Oh no.
But we're talking 1920s.
Wow.
Now, this is, I guess, the first hotel we've kind of come across, which is the National Forest Inn. And yeah, I mean, I love the signage, everything about it. Looks just, you know, for something you're just trying to get through, looks like a pretty nice place that you'd want to sit down.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's got a neat little history to it. It was actually a speakeasy during Prohibition. So
wow.
They didn't sell alcohol, but they wouldn't ask questions if you brought your own. And you see where it says the dining room right there? They used to take all the tables out and make that in a dance hall. And everybody would come up from Saugus and Newhall and they'd go up there to party. And a lot of the cabins in the back, people would stay overnight after they had a great weekend. And it had a cool history behind it.
Wow. I mean, I know when you come here, you kind of see, you know, I know you've seen some like concrete pilings around here, but
there's a little staircase.
Yeah, but I just didn't realize that this was a much bigger complex than what the photo shows off.
Oh, I know which one that is. Yeah, that's way bigger than.
Yeah.
We've got this little stairs right there. Looks like they go nowhere.
Yeah. There used to be a cabin up there. And a lot of these places on the Ridge Route, you'll look at the footprint and go, this must have been tiny. And they built them out over the cliffs for a lot of these hotels.
Oh, wow.
Well, I used to think the Tumble Inn was tiny because all you see is the arch. But then when I saw the picture, it's way bigger than.
Yeah, there's a couple of buildings in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. My one quick question is this little dirt road that kind of continues here. Was this a separate side road earlier? Because it seems to kind of go down near where you get on like the Templin Highway exit the freeway.
Yeah.
Or is this just
that roughly follows where the pipeline runs. So my best guess on that was it was an access road for the pipeline. I don't think it's original to that time period, but I'm going to have to pull up some old maps and take a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I could ask 100 more questions.
Oh yeah. And it's funny he mentioned the Tumble Inn too, because the owner of the Tumble Inn and the owner of the National Forest Inn were brothers.
Competition.
Wow.
Familial competition.
Oh yeah.
So this is a segment that like you kind of get wowed in when you go through, and that's Swede's Cut, and it's unique in its construction. It's interesting because probably every week it's a little bit different depending on what rocks have fallen and who has helped clean it up. But tell us a little bit about this section called Swede's Cut.
So Swede's Cut is the deepest cut in the road, and it is the only spot on the road that they brought in a steam shovel, just because of how massive it is. It's 110 feet deep, and for that point in time was insane. Like, we look at our cuts now for the freeway, and we're like, oh, whatever. But at that point in time, this was the biggest thing that they had done. And they had the steam shovel digging out through the rocks, and they had little train tracks, and they'd fill up these carts, and mules would pull all of the excess debris out of the way on the little train tracks. So it's a pretty neat, it's very unique on this road just because of that.
And I'm just throwing up, this is video you have gotten with your drone. And I think we're kind of pulling out. We're going from south to north, looking back. And just incredible piece. You could just see how high up the cliff this was actually cut out, and amazing the amount of work they put in just for this one road.
It is
for what it was here.
Wow.
Yeah. And a big part of the reason why they made this cut is because the roads previous, you have to think these cars are not extremely powerful cars. So the roads would be up and down steep hills, and the cars can't make it. So this road was specifically engineered to have a 6% grade for it to be accessible for almost everybody. And it's one of the first of its kind that was designed for that reason.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then one thing I guess I forgot to mention here, but maybe we can get it on the images. Was a serpentine curve. We were kind of like looking back on it, and that is an incredible view, like seeing not just the curve itself, but kind of looking back and seeing that much of the highway. I'm almost matching it, but just an amazing view.
It is. Yeah, that whole stretch of road was called Serpentine Drive, and I found that as the most photographed spot on the road. Looking at all the historic photos.
I didn't know the whole thing was designed to be 6%, so that makes sense that the Templin Highway crossing, because that's a really steep ramp. And I always wondered, like, how would this work in 1920? But that's not part of the original road.
No. And there are spots where it deviates from 6%. Sometimes it's 7%. Sometimes it's a little more, a little less. But for the most part, they kept it at that 6%.
Right. That makes sense.
Wow. Okay. So kind of moving on from Swedes Cut. I know there's a couple good viewing spots here, but we have not actually... I know this is kind of like where the road probably has like our first really big descent. That where you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be riding a road bike. But a couple things here. First, like, and we've done this, like you kind of like maybe sometimes you'll cheat a little bit and go inside, depending on what the road is like, and this is the older on the out. And then, we've never been up to Reservoir Summit or the actual reservoir itself. So what's the history behind that?
This is my favorite location on the whole road. So the reservoir, there were 3 reservoirs used to hold water while they were building the road. So this is one of those 3. One of them is completely wiped out. There's only 2 left, but this is one of them and the most easily accessible. That used to be a campground up there by the reservoir, but the actual building was off the cliff. So there used to be a very fancy restaurant that hung over the cliff. If you kind of turn 90 degrees to the right, that's about where it was. So that would be their view from the restaurant, and it's down off the road where the marker is. And it was a fancy restaurant. You had waiters with ties, and you could have a seat with this big glass wall overlooking the view there. And especially for that point in time, I mean, where do you get that?
Wait a minute. What year was that? When was that happening? Not 1920.
1920s.
No way.
Yeah.
How would you get to work, like if you were a waiter at that place?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they all lived there in that vicinity. But most of these are family-owned places. So they live upstairs and the hotel or the restaurants or gas stations downstairs.
Is that accessible by bike? Can we go there, Zach?
Yeah,
I think you just go up the dirt road here off the side.
We have to do that. We've never been up there.
Yeah, there's a little right there where it pops up from the road. It's a little steep, but you can make it no problem.
Yeah,
and then where that shadow of that tree is where the building was that was over the cliff. You'll see little foundations there.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right here?
Nope, keep going right.
Oh.
Shadow of the tree in the road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was off of that cliff down there.
Wow. Jeez, that definitely, when you make that turn, you kind of get distracted on that descent with the view, kind of all coming in and seeing how it
I don't remember seeing any kind of intersection like that anywhere on the road.
I think the thing is we're going by kind of fast, and we're kind of, I know this part, you're kind of more just watching out for big rocks if you're on a bike.
So we're descending. This is past Templin Highway, obviously, and
yeah, it's our first big descent.
Okay. Wow. Never even noticed that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And one of the fun things, especially for cyclists, is as you're coming down that descent, they have these banked curves
Yeah.
where the road kind of goes up with the curve.
Yes.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
that
we've done that. That's super cool, but I've never seen an intersection.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of up off to the right.
Huh.
Or left if you're going this way,
Yeah.
right if you're coming down.
And that's the other thing that you note when you're coming down is that two separate surfaces,
Mm-hmm.
and we tend to go back and forth and cut the inside line, but just taking a look at the narrowness of this road,
Yeah.
it's fine when you're on bikes. We have plenty of space, but like two cars trying to get through on this original road. Oh God, I could see
Those little Model Ts were tiny.
That's
So
true.
It's a 20-foot wide.
But if you were taking like a truck from that age,
mm-hmm.
Would
They're
they?
not
Would they?
much bigger.
Well,
They're not
yeah,
much bigger.
they're not too much wider.
Nah, they're not much bigger.
Hmm.
Two modern day trucks, no way.
No. That's where you gotta find a shoulder to pull over.
Yeah,
on.
no way.
Yeah.
So now the next site, this one is another one most people can probably pass because it's actually kind of like below the road, and you have to kind of keep an eye out. And that's it's called Kelly's Halfway Inn.
Yeah, Kelly's Halfway Inn, and it was named that because it's halfway between Los Angeles and Bakersfield. So they had a gas station, they had a garage. I believe they ran a tow truck out of there. It's down below the road, and there'll be a little marker at the road, and it drops down. There's a big tree down there. That's how you'll identify it. It's got a pretty nice view. It's a little hard to find foundations, but there are some down there.
I tried last time, but there was a lot of bees.
Yeah, you have to watch out for the bees. They're not always there, but they're sometimes there.
Okay. And then this is another picture that I took, I think probably on my first ride when
had to be
the
because
markers.
you can see the sign.
Yeah.
When you were talking earlier, but this is the one they had. Now, if you take a look at the sign, it's basically, just blank, but you could make out. But the question about the sign, because I think you see a couple spots like, is this junk like antiques at the top, or is it just stuff people have found along the way?
Somebody has gone through there and picked up all the little pieces they find and set it on the signs, which I think is actually pretty cool. On top of that one, on top of the Reservoir Summit one, there's a piece of a battery from that time period. But there's all kinds of little trinkets and bits. And I appreciate that they put it on the sign and they don't take it home with them because it stays with the history.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why this would be such a cool project if you're able to, put these signs back up, because it definitely adds so much context. And
definitely.
Every time I go back, I hope the signs are fixed, and I've been disappointed.
I'm so sorry.
I'm pretty sure I've done it 4 times. I know I've done it at least 3 because I've done it on 3 different bikes. But I think I've done it at least 4 times.
Oh, man.
And like I said, the first time that you can kind of see the signs, and every time after that, it's just nothing.
Yeah, I don't think you can see any of them anymore. But
Nah,
we're pushing for it. I think that's going to end up being a spring or summer of next year project. We just got to get through this El Nino.
Cool.
Okay, so from here, we're probably near mile 20 here, and obviously the biggest landmark you'll see along the way is the Tumble Inn, which actually is behind the other gate. So you can, if you do want to choose to drive there, you can come from the north. But it's definitely a showstopper, and this is one of your photos. It's just gorgeous, this archway. This is a photo we were talking about earlier that shows what was there. It just really boggles the mind. I mean, the wall in front seems to be pretty well preserved, but trying to find the rest of what's back here. There's actually more to Tumble Inn that you probably even see in the picture, right?
Yeah, so it was a pretty good little complex. That building up above the arch there was part of the hotel. They had rooms in there. the building to the right of the arch down below, that's where the restaurant was. And then one step further, where they've got that stone building, is the garage. And these were actually, the Tumble Inn was later renamed the Mountain View Inn. And then in the 40s, there was a family that had lived there. They were hiding out. They're scared that we were going to be attacked in World War II. So they hid out there at the Tumble Inn. And after they had let go of it and their lease was up, the Forest Service bulldozed it because they didn't want anybody camping in the buildings or any problems. So if you look over the cliff past the arch where that dirt road drops down, there's bits of stones. Yeah, right there where that dirt road drops down. There's bits of stones and stuff from the original buildings, but not a whole lot left.
Oh, that's
and
a
you can
shame.
see little foundations. Yeah. Yeah, it would have been nice to have it all still there, but I understand the liability part of it.
Well, you want to know what number the Powerball's at right now?
Right?
Yeah, that'd be such a great opportunity.
It would to have a little museum out of there.
Yeah, or even just a place to stay along the route, because people are making a big long drive out here. One thing, this part is like hilarious right here.
It is. Look at that.
Actually, I didn't notice it until I was making this video of the old road, and I think typically I've just gone straight up and not even noticed.
Yep.
But how this new road just was cut like right through. Is that something that's more super modern than some of the fixes in the 20s? They added this.
That was in the 20s. So they were having issues with people driving over the cliffs or driving on the wrong side of the road in head-on collisions. That's when they did a lot of the straightening. And they cut out a significant more chunk of the hill to straighten that out than the original alignment. And you can kind of see how narrow the original alignment is compared to the widened stretch. And there is a small spot on the pavement there where you can see the remnants of a center stripe. Sometimes you only see it in some light, and that was new at the time. When they built the road, the center stripe hadn't really been a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It has to be confusing because if you have people visiting from the UK, they probably want to drive on the other side of the road. So this way. So this is kind of when you're hitting the home stretch. I know if you're biking a few notes, it does get a little bit sandy before you hit this part. But, even if you have trouble, not a problem. You just go ahead and walk. But coming up on Libre Summit, that's the highest point, I guess, which is like about 4,400 feet.
4233.
Okay.
But who's counting?
Right? You always feel like Reservoir Summit's the highest, but it's actually Libre Summit.
Now, the interesting is like the mountain. I've never been up there, but have you ever gone up the dirt road to the mountain part over here?
It's stunning up there. The road washes out seasonally, but if you can find it on a day where it's not washed out, it's gorgeous.
Do you access it from the ridge route, or do you come up the other way?
Yeah, so towards the bottom right corner of your screen there's that dirt road right there. That's how you get up at 7N23. And it's actually across from one of the original maintenance camps of the road. That big opening there. Yeah.
And I heard there's like somewhere along the way here, there's a former compound or home that has been vacated.
So Knapp Ranch, which was formerly Kelly Ranch down there are, 3 homes on the property. One belonged to Frank Knapp, and then he had a little bunkhouse on there. And then there's an older home who was owned by Annie Rose Briggs. And they moved out there because they were in search of this legendary Lost Padres mine, which was presumably haunted. So, and he lived a self-sufficient life out there. I mean, from what I've read and what I've heard about him, he almost never left that property. He had buffalo, he had cattle, he had a fish pond out there. He grew his own crops. He sounded like a really neat guy. And then that that home's got a ton of history behind it. I could go all day about it.
Well, that would be another show. Great. I want to save that because, well, Vic and I, we need to explore this area more.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
we've never
Yes.
done this area before, and I think we would, instead of trying to add on to the loop because water is so hard, we would just probably start at the Sandberg side and just kind of like just cover this area.
Yeah.
One thing I want. Go ahead.
If you need a good spot to park, right where that dirt road drops down, there's a nice big open spot where the maintenance camp used to be.
Okay.
So you could just go straight for it right there.
Okay. The other picture, and now I actually had not noticed this before, but the granite gate section that's right here. And yeah, tell us a little bit more about this, because it's the other thing is when you take a look at this image or kind of take a look, and it's just right before, Libre Summit, like it's a straight road. You don't get too much of the straightness along the way.
No, so that was one of the sections that did get realigned. And the granite gate itself is kind of like a little oddity from that point in time. You've got a rock on one side and then a whole rock wall in the middle, or on the other side, and the road runs through the middle. But if you pay attention, there's a lot of dirt berms, and the original alignment of the road is underneath those dirt berms. And you'll have your concrete, your Portland cement, and then you'll have your macadam, which is your asphalt. And that's the loose, rocky kind of stuff. And that is a main section I'm working on fixing right now.
Did I miss why it's called Portland cement? Does it actually come from Portland? Like what?
I don't actually know on that one.
Oh.
It's a certain mix of cement. Now I know on this particular road, all of the cement was sourced and mined locally. It all came from off of Gorman Post Road.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a little hard to ship it that far at that point in time.
Yeah, I until this is another thing you just take for granted, because you could see how some of the sections are overgrown here. But yeah, we've just pretty much gone straight, and I didn't realize that this was just a straightening of an older section. So
yeah.
I can't believe I've almost your drone. I've almost got the same view with the Google Earth.
Yeah,
so
you
just
nailed
remarkable
it.
Comparing. Ugh. Well, even a stop clock is right twice a day. Now, this part here, like, you almost maybe would you say save the best for last, because the Sandberg's over here. Now, I know obviously there's nothing there, but whenever you like go through the photos of this area, this looks like it was like a remarkable place.
Yeah.
That like, please somebody bring this back.
It was still in existence till I want to say 1961 is when it burnt down. And it's got a neat history. I mean, the guy who built it, Harold Sandberg, he built it a year before the road was open because he knew the road was going to open. He had a business opportunity. He's like, let's go. It was a 1-story log cabin originally, and he upped it to a 3-story log cabin as time went on, and it was always busy. It was a high-class establishment. They had the sign on the door that said, no truck drivers or dogs. So they were very like, we only want who we want here. They had a huge apple orchard across the way, and its own breed of apples, the Sandberg apples, and they were gifts for 2 separate presidents on their inaugurations. And after the road had been bypassed, Harold Sandberg sold the property, and the guy who bought it ended up running a gambling joint out of there. And there was all kinds of sketchy stuff going down. And then he sold that to a woman making pottery who was accused of being a German spy for World War II.
Oh, wow.
So even more kind of crazy what's happening here. And it ultimately met its demise when a stuntman bought it. It's all over the place. And he was trying to make it into a kids' camp, and he was burning trash in this. They have a grand fireplace in there. So he was burning trash in the fireplace, and it burnt the whole building to the ground in the 60s. but it's super cool. And there's a lot of foundations in there. There's a nice long rock wall, and across the road there's another rock wall, and it had little bases for gas lamps. And you can see the big foundation right in that open spot was from the garage.
Right here?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Yeah, it's a neat spot.
I haven't even gone that deep past the tree, but wow.
Oh, the more you look, the more you'll find.
Oh, wow.
Wow, we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
That's why it's like every time we go, we discover something new here.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And then just kind of like to wrap up, I guess like the section where we kind of like end right here is Pine Canyon. And, we take that across to get to Lake Hughes and then come back. But, zooming out here, obviously this is where the road continues on, and it feels like it's been widened and, probably not as well preserved, probably because it's an open road and used more frequently for the people in this area.
Yeah, so that part is county maintained. It does follow the original alignment, and there's a couple good stretches of the concrete. It'll follow the original alignment until it drops down to the 138. And if you pay attention and you look as you're going down the hill, you look up on the hillsides, there'll be a little concrete posts. They're a little hard to find, but those are C blocks, and that's how the surveyors marked where the road was going to go.
Is this still LA County or is this Kern County? What county are we in here?
We are LA County right here. It goes up to Kern County, about where Fraser Park is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah. So just kind of like zooming out, one last look at kind of like overview of what we looked at. Yeah, just an amazing amount of history here, and
so much.
Wow.
We're biased. We're on a bike, but I think that's like a pretty cool way to, if you're biking across, you can stop, take a look, pick up again. That's kind of like the joy and why you always have to give yourself a lot more time than you think, and bring a lot of water. And don't do it in the middle of summer.
No, please don't.
No.
Yeah, there are no services out there. It is barren. You feel like you're really out there in the middle of nowhere. So bring whatever supplies you need.
Definitely.
And cell phone service isn't that great out there either.
No, not
it's
too
spotty.
Okay, so we're basically roughing it just like people did, almost exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
One thing most of the time you can see the freeway, so you're near civilization.
Yeah, you're never too far off, but there are points where you do feel very out there.
Yeah, through the cut, you're like, where am I?
Yeah, and coming down off a reservoir summit on that whoop-de-woo, that's you've got the freeway on the other side of the hill. You don't see anything.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
I guess I should have had that one spot where you can actually be on the ridge route, see the 5 and the 99 at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you're missing that, then you're probably just racing through and not taking it the way you should be.
No. Yeah, and that's a neat spot because you have 3 eras of road. You've got the 1915, the first rendition, the ridge route. You got the 1933 Highway 99 ridge route alternate, and then you have the modern day I-5. All 3 of them, 3 different eras, 3 different generations.
When was the I-5 first built through there?
It's either 1971 or 1972.
Oh, 71, that late. Okay.
It's a half century old.
Yeah.
Not, it kind of sounds older when you put it that way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the ridge route was only in operation for a little more than 15 years, and then that one, the 5, has lasted a lot longer.
Well, Sydney, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've got a shop as well, where you can help support your work.
Thank you.
And then, the best way for people to help support the Ridge Route is the Ridge Route Preservation Organization.
Yes.
And which also, has a number of cleanups and events, throughout the year. So, you know, thank you so much, and also like, the way we came across you was like on Instagram, looking
Yeah.
at your page, Ridge Route Gallery. I've got, like I said, check the description. I've got links to that down there. I mean, you do fantastic work,
Thank you.
and I say, what? I do not take as many good images at sunset. I need to learn to do that a little bit more,
Oh
and
yeah.
just fantastic stuff. And like, you definitely are going to inspire a lot of other people to hit the road as well.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking to you guys this evening.
You too.
All right. Thanks so much, Sydney.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.